This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated's blog, Zalma on Insurance. This video, as a supplement to the last blog posting, I explain why the insured should always read the policy and why the law requires and obligates the insured to read the policy if the insured wishes to take advantage of that policy by making a claim. Every person that acquires a policy of insurance, whether designed to protect a dwelling, a commercial property, agriculture, crops from destruction by the actions of nature, or from liability arising from claims of torts or cyber attacks, must read and understand the policy, preferably before it is acquired, to determine it provides the coverage requested. It must be read again before making a claim to an insurer. A majority of the courts that have been called upon to interpret an insurance policy require that the person seeking insurance must read the insurance contract, or at the very least have a lawyer or insurance professional read, understand, and explain the policy to the person acquiring the insurance. For the last 55 years, I have asked people making claims on an insurance policy whether they have read and understood their insurance policy. Most just laughed and claimed they never tried. 2, in my career, answered yes, and after further questioning it became obvious that both lied, since they knew nothing about the terms or conditions of the policy they claimed they had read and understood. These facts horrify me as an insurance coverage lawyer, consultant, and an expert witness, testifying in courts across the United States about the purchase and sale of insurance contracts and insurance claims handling. My career, starting as a trainee adjuster in 1967 and later as an insurance coverage lawyer, consultant, and expert witness, they required that I read, understand, and apply insurance policies issued by my clients to individuals and businesses. I have written, edited, or revised policies of insurance on behalf of insurance clients. I have read insurance policies I acquire to protect my property and protect me against tort liability before I order the policy. I know I am unusual, but I should not be. My practice should be the norm. So what is insurance? Many states have different definitions of the word insurance, but each have the same essential elements. 1, it must be a written contract. 2, one party, the insurer, agrees with the other, the insured, as to the insurance provided. 3, the insurer, for consideration, usually payment of a premium, agrees to indemnify the insured against a contingent or unknown event. And 4, the promise to indemnify is limited to certain identified risks of loss arising from a fortuitous, contingent, or unknown event. Insurance is a contract like all other contracts. No one should enter into a contract ignorant of its terms and conditions. Many people would never sign a lease without reading it. No business person will sign a lease until he or she has been advised by a lawyer representing the business person alone of its terms, conditions, limitations, and whether it is favorable to the person seeking to lease commercial property. No one should agree to the terms of a mortgage without reading the contract. Insurance contracts, however, are almost never read by the person insured. Some are not read by the agent, broker, or underwriter who sell the insurance to the insured or the lawyers retained to enforce it. Yet hundreds of hours of the work of insurance professionals are involved in the writing of policies of insurance. There is no viable excuse for not reading an insurance policy. Modern insurance policies, as a result of state statutes, are required to be written in plain language or easy-to-read language sufficient for anyone with a fourth-grade education to understand. I usually describe the modern language of insurance policies as being written in Sesame Street English. Why, then, do people fail to read their insurance policy? Insurance policies have a bad reputation. People believe insurance policies are impossible to understand. Courts in the past have encouraged this belief. Policies are believed by the common person to be confusing and complicated. Sections of the contract are frequently cross-referenced to other sections of the policy, often in a convoluted way. Insurance companies strive to make their policies as clear as possible, because when coverage is subject to a legal challenge, ambiguity in the language will always be interpreted in a way that favors the insured, not the insurer. For example, in Insurance Company of North America versus Electronic Purification Company, the California Supreme Court noted, quote, "The insurance company gave the insured coverage in relatively simple language, easily understood by the common man in the marketplace, but attempted to take away a portion of the same coverage in paragraphs and language which even a lawyer, be he from Philadelphia or Bungay, would find difficult to comprehend." Courts called upon to interpret or enforce a contract of insurance will always conclude that if an insurance contract is neither ambiguous nor difficult to comprehend, it will be enforced as written. If 21st century judges want to make better sense of the insurance area of the law, they should start by understanding and admitting, 1, almost nobody reads everything he or she signs. 2, almost nobody is able to read everything he or she signs. 3, what drafters do want is to be able to treat those insureds as if he or she had read everything and understood it. 4, drafters of insurance policies do not care if, in fact, the insured has not read and understood the policy. In many cases, would prefer that he or she did not. And 5, do not call it a duty. That just adds insult to the injury. However, it is black-letter law that one who knowingly and voluntarily assents to a contract whose terms are contained in a writing should be held legally responsible for his or her actions by being held to the terms in the absence of fraud, mistake, or other excusing clause. A party cannot negotiate, enter into, and perform under a contract only to later claim that it objected to some provision of the contract and thus retained a mental reservation to the terms of the agreement. Such a holding creates the risk that any disgruntled party may belatedly assert a lack of voluntary assent to a contract that it executed and performed. Whether almost no one reads their insurance policies, and my experience seems to establish the fact, that fact does not make them less effective contracts. Even an adhesion contract only means the person offering the contract gives the person to whom it is offered only 2 choices: 1, accept the contract, or 2, reject the contract. If it is accepted, the contract is enforced. Modern policies are now written in plain language as required by statute. The need for plain language in an insurance policy was first described in the United States in the early 1950s. The federal government's most recent plain language initiative began in 1998 when President Clinton issued a memorandum on plain language in government writing. He said, quote, "We are determined to make the government more responsive and understandable in its communications with the public by using plain language. We send a clear message about what the government is doing, what it requires, and what services it offers. Plain language saves the government and the private sector time, effort, and money." Close quote. There is no one generally accepted definition of plain language or plain English, but most people agree that the plain language document is one in which people can find what they need, understand what they find, and act appropriately on that understanding. Key elements of plain language are to 1. Organize information so that the most important behavioral or action points come first. 2. Break complex information into understandable chunks. 3. Use simple language or define technical terms. And 4. Provide ample white space so pages look easy to read. In addition to the key elements, there are dozens of plain language guidelines and techniques, such as using short sentences and active voice when possible. Document design principles highlight the importance of organization and format and enhance the impact of plain language. Good document design required bringing together prose, graphics, and typography for purposes of instruction, information, or persuasion. Plain language does not require the writer of an insurance policy to dumb down the policy or eliminate the required precision necessary to make a contract enforceable. However, they often do. Sometimes insurance professionals are concerned, rightfully so, that using plain language will oversimplify information to the point where it is inaccurate or worthless. Plain language is not anti-intellectual, not unsophisticated, drab, or inadequate. Plain language has to do with clear and effective communications and should be considered nothing more nor nothing less. In the style of Abraham Lincoln, Mark Twain, and Winston Churchill, plain language is not just about vocabulary or grade level. Writing to a certain grade level does not necessarily ensure that the message is in plain language or understood by the intended audience. All materials, all terms, all conditions, especially in an insurance policy, should be evaluated for understanding with the intended users, regardless of a grade level score. States followed the directions set by the federal government and required insurers by statute to modify their insurance policies to be written in plain language. In doing so, the plain language insurance policies took away the argument that the policy was too hard to understand and for that reason should not be enforced to the detriment of the insurer. So why with the new, easy-to-read, plain language policies do people still fail to read their insurance policy? There is no logical answer. Perhaps it is the embedded prejudice that makes some people believe they could never understand a policy even if they tried to read it. More likely, it is simply the fact that most people trust the insurance agent and broker who obtain the policy for them, and trust, often without cause, the agent or broker to get the coverage they needed. From my 55 years reading and interpreting insurance contracts, I can only say that those people who did not read their policy will get very upset when their insurance agent or broker tells them they acquired the best available policy and that it covers almost everything. However, at the time they report a loss. In fact, it does not mean the policy covered every possible contingency. There is no such thing as a policy that covers every possible contingency. When an adjuster or lawyer points out that there is no available coverage for their claim, they contend they were deceived. Had the insured read the policy before it was acquired, he or she would know that no insurance policy covers every possible risk of loss faced by a person or business. Some risks of loss are difficult, if not impossible, to insure. Consider the risk of loss by war, atomic attack, earthquake, flood. Can be insured, but only for an extremely high premium with extremely high deductibles or self-insured retentions, so that they are so expensive to make such coverages unsaleable. Most insurance policies, as a result, exclude in clear and unambiguous language coverage for those extreme risks. The person insured who does not read the policy will be upset when his property is destroyed by a flood or earthquake. Had he read the policy and wanted coverage for earthquake or flood, he or she would have been directed to a specialty insurer who is in the business to issue a policy, probably expensive, that provides that coverage. The lengthy article in the blog posting will discuss in detail facts and things that I cannot do in this video, and I refer you to the article in the blog post where you can learn about why an insured can rely on the superior expertise of others, why only a fiduciary is obligated to read or explain the terms of the policy to the insured, why the insurance contract is usually enforceable as written, and why a failure to read a policy is a defense to negligence of the agent or broker, because the law of comparative negligence can reduce the liability owed, because the failure to read the policy also adds the insured's own negligence, and that will reduce any recovery the insured obtains from his agent or broker. And finally, with regard to the law of unintended consequences, I note it took quite a few years, but finally the legislatures enacted the easy-to-read statutes compelling insurers to use common language easily understood by the public. In so doing, policies became less precise and contrary to the intent of the statutes. There is more litigation claiming ambiguities in insurance contracts that must be construed against the insurer, and avoid all of the old, not so easy to read contracts that had 100 years of court interpretations making the ambiguities non-existent and clarifying the language so that everybody knew what they really meant. The law of unintended consequences took hold, and easy-to-read policies, rather than making claims simpler, have grown insurance coverage litigation logarithmically. This video was adapted from my blog, Zalma on Insurance, where you can read the entire approximately 6,000 words. And if you found the video and the article in the blog post to be useful or interesting to you, please subscribe to the blog so that you miss none of my blog postings, usually 5 a week, and miss none of the videos, where on rumble.com there are almost 600 videos on insurance and insurance claims handling that you can watch. Please subscribe to the rumble.com or to my locals community, where in addition to the blog postings that are free, you will receive and can obtain specialty articles and videos dealing with insurance claims and insurance claims handling. Please tell your friends and colleagues so that they can also subscribe. And if you watch the videos, please click on the Rumble button on rumble.com or on the like button if you watch it on YouTube. Thank you for your attention.